The secret lives behind the front lines. They say the Civil War was fought between North and South, but for millions it was fought between duty and conscience, between truth and survival. Beyond the battlefields and the smoke, there were invisible wars, fought in kitchens, barns, churches, and hearts. While generals mapped their strategies on paper, ordinary men and women carried out secret missions that never reached the headlines. This is their story, the story of the unseen heroes of a divided America. Her name was Clara Whitmore, a widow from Winchester, Virginia, a town that changed hands more than 70 times during the war. History remembers her as a quiet seamstress. What few know is that Clara was also one of the Confederacy's most unlikely spies, until she changed sides. When Union forces first occupied Winchester in 1862, Clara hid a wounded Confederate officer in her basement. But as she nursed him back to health, she discovered letters in his satchel. Letters describing plans to burn nearby towns suspected of harboring Union sympathizers. One of those towns was her own. That night, Clara made a choice that would haunt her forever. She took the letters, disguised herself as a washerwoman, and walked 12 miles through muddy back roads to deliver them to a Union outpost. The attack never happened. Her name was never recorded in official records. Only a coded note from a Union colonel. The sparrow sang at midnight. That was Clara's code name, and the war had just begun for her. In 1863, a man named Reverend Josiah Kane arrived in Richmond claiming to be a traveling minister. He wore a simple black coat and carried a Bible. But beneath that Bible was a hollow space filled with Union military maps. Kane was a spy, trained by the Bureau of Military Information, the first organized intelligence agency in U.S. history. For months, he moved undetected between Confederate churches, delivering sermons that doubled as coded messages. Each verse he emphasized, each word he paused on, corresponded to troop movements. One witness later wrote, "He preached salvation by day and sabotage by night." Kane's final mission was to deliver a message to President Lincoln himself. He never made it. Caught near Fredericksburg, he was executed quietly without trial. The only thing found in his coat was a piece of paper that read, "The truth will outlive us all." It did. In 1994, archivists uncovered a collection of unsent letters from both Union and Confederate soldiers in an abandoned farmhouse in Pennsylvania. Most were never mailed because the post rider was killed in battle. One letter, written by Private Thomas Hale, a Confederate soldier, reads, "I fight for the South, but my heart belongs to no flag. I fight because I am told to. But if I fall, tell my mother I died, hoping no one else would." Another from Corporal Daniel Morris of the Union Army. "We call them rebels, but I have seen their faces. They look like us. If we ever meet again, I would rather shake their hands than load my gun." These letters were never part of official war record, but they revealed the most human truth of all. The Civil War wasn't fought by monsters. It was fought by men trapped in history's storm. In the spring of 1864, deep in the woods of Mississippi, rumors spread of a group known as the Iron Shadows, a secret regiment made up of escaped slaves, runaway Union deserters, and Southern farmers who refused to fight for either side. They fought under no flag. They called themselves free men of no nation. Union generals denied their existence. Confederate officers called them bandits. But journals found after the war tell another story. They ambushed supply lines, rescued prisoners, and protected villages caught in the crossfire. A diary by a Union scout describes them. They come and go like ghosts. They fight for something greater than victory. They fight for silence, for peace. By the end of the war, the Iron Shadows had vanished. No graves, no medals, no names. Only a legend and a trail of freedom behind them. In early 1865, as Richmond prepared to fall, Confederate Treasury officials discovered that millions in gold had disappeared. The missing fortune became known as the Lost Confederate Gold, a mystery still unsolved. But buried among old court documents was an unrecorded confession from Charles Templeton, a Southern banker. He admitted to secretly diverting Confederate gold to buy the release of enslaved families from Georgia plantations, smuggling them through Florida into Cuba. If true, Templeton was not a thief, he was a silent liberator. He vanished after the war. Some say he drowned, others claim he lived under a false name in Havana. In 2012, divers near the Florida Keys found a rusted chest containing pre-war Confederate coins and a single engraved plate, "For freedom bought with silence." April 9, 1865. General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The official story says the meeting was calm, respectful, the war's dignified end. But a lesser-known diary entry from one of Grant's aides paints a different picture. He described how, after the signatures were placed, Lee stood by the window, looking out at the rain, and whispered, "We have lost more than a war. We have lost ourselves outside." Soldiers on both sides wept in silence, not for victory or defeat, but for everything they had become. That night, a young drummer boy, nameless and forgotten, beat his drum one last time. The rhythm echoed through the camp, steady, mournful, human. It was the sound of a nation beginning to heal. The Civil War ended, but the wounds remained. Families torn apart, never reunited. Fields once soaked in blood became farmland again, but the ghosts stayed. In attics and libraries, forgotten papers still tell the secret history of that time, of people who chose conscience over command, truth over safety. From Clara Whitmore, the sparrow who sang at midnight, to the iron shadows who fought for no flag but freedom, to the preacher who never preached yet changed the course of a nation. These were not myths. They were the hidden heartbeat of America, the part of history that never made it into textbooks, but built the country we know today. Because history in the end isn't written by those who win battles. It's written by those who kept their humanity when the world demanded they lose it.